In time, somewhere further down the line, I think I may look back on JioCinema's new series Kaalkoot somewhat favourably, as a show that dared to be different, or at least tried, in its treatment, tone and style. But the thing about taking a giant leap to stand out of the crowd is it requires you to land on your feet. Vijay Varma is rookie inspector Ravi Shankar Tripathi at a police station in a fictional town in UP. I know, right? For once Vijay Varma plays the good guy, I too was shooketh. Ravi is reeling from the recent loss of his father, and not unlike Sonakshi Sinha's character Anjali Bhati in The Hard, in which Vijay was the baddie, Ravi spends his days policing and navigating messy police politics, while his nights are taken up by drowning in biodatas and being berated by his mother to settle down and get married. That is until one case comes along that consumes Ravi entirely. A young woman, Parul Chaturvedi, played by a tragically overlooked Shweta Tripathi Sharma, becomes the victim of a horrific acid attack, and it's up to Vijay to find out who's behind it and why. Much like The Hard, Kaalkoot attempts to use the template of an investigation thriller to examine the horrors of toxic masculinity and patriarchy. The series is created by TVF's Arnab Kumar, but curiously, this isn't a TVF show. Written by Arnab, Karan Singh Tyagi and Sumit Saxena, who's also the director here. Among the onslaught of crime dramas we get week in, week out, Kaalkoot stands out on two counts. First is its odd tonality. It took me more than half the season to understand what the show is going for and what it wants to be. Part of me is still grappling with it, but more on that later. The second is DOP Manish Bhatt's fluid, unruly cinematography. Between the love of drone shots and long take sequences and the way the camera glides in and out of police stations and hospitals, you certainly can't accuse this show's visual style of being lazy or stale. But there's a fine line between dynamic and disruptive, disorienting and just plain distracting. The camera seems to have a mind of its own and draws far too much attention to itself, often impeding the storytelling rather than adding to it, to the extent that even a static scene of two stationary seated people in conversation with each other is captured using the shakiest of shaky cams. It's truly baffling and at its worst can only be described as drunken earthquake cinematography. Between the excessive shaky cam and the strange sudden zoom-ins to characters' faces, I started to sincerely believe that this show was going for a mockumentary-style satire thing. Then I jumped to the idea that maybe it's a kind of a workplace dramedy. Think Panchayat but set in a police station. Even though there's nothing comedic about this show, if anything, the matter-of-fact staging of the violence and the various acid attack sequences are deeply unsettling. But for a moment there, I really did think it was going for some sort of satire, because that's just what you do when your mind can't make sense of what a show is going for. You leap to theories. It's an interesting problem to have to pick apart a puzzle, but it certainly isn't a good sign when you have to work this hard to figure it out. The result is a series that I was consistently intrigued by but felt very little for in terms of the plot and characters. Partly because of the ineffective narrative structure. There's an art to making a gradually expanding investigative series compelling, to leave breadcrumbs and red herrings, clues and cliffhangers, revelations and escalating tension within a delicately unraveling web of lies, deceit and seedy figures. Not only does the writing of Kaalkoot do a poor job of balancing the personal lives of these characters with the actual investigation side, it's only really in the last two episodes where the proceedings kick into gear and you feel some sense of urgency. After a point, I even lost track of the various suspects and their motives. Put simply, there's very little on offer here to keep you coming back episode after episode. All of this culminates in a ridiculously loud assault on the senses, masala-fueled climactic action sequence that belongs to a different series. It's almost as if someone stormed in and demanded that Ravi Shankar Tripathi get his grand, silly hero moment. It also doesn't help that the ultimate bad guy here is conceptually similar to Vijay Varma's Anand Swarnakar in The Hard, the living embodiment of weaponized patriarchy. In this case, it's a vigilante figure who fights for the cause of men who can't fathom the idea of being hurt or rejected by women. But unlike The Hard, the social commentary in Kaalkoot is somehow too subtle and too in your face at the same time. There are interesting ideas here of bigoted sexist officers investigating crimes against women. These are officers who snigger and yawn through a gender sensitivity training session and casually refer to beating their wives. Officers who find out that the female victim drinks alcohol, so they jump to the conclusion that she must be a prostitute. Officers who start slut-shaming, victim-blaming and judging the victim to the point of even empathizing with the potential culprit. These officers are brought to life by solid performances from Yashpal Sharma as Yadav, along with one of my favorite actors, Gopal Dutt, as the unapologetically obnoxious SHO Jagdish. As Ravi, the sensitive officer surrounded by brutish toxic masculinity, Vijay Varma does a great deal of the heavy lifting in keeping us engaged despite the uneven show around him. But I also got to say, it's not easy to watch an actor of Shweta Tripathi Sharma's caliber sidelined and given so little to do for 8 long episodes. For a show literally about patriarchy, the female characters here are given minimal importance. In the end, I didn't know whether to admire the show's ambition and approach or be put off that it was such a task to wrap my head around. What you're left with is a series that was, for me, big on disruptive style but low on substance. You can watch Kaalkoot on JioCinema.